There are a handful of weapons in Dark Souls that scale with faith, some good, some bad, but all of them have one thing in common. Never used any of them. So, I'm going to see if I can beat Dark Souls with only faith weapons, plus a little twist. I make my character starting as a cleric with the Master Key and name them after one of the greatest faith bands ever put together. Next, I grab my first weapon. No, not that one. That one. Oh no. Okay, so challenge talk time. If you've seen the int only video, it's basically that, but for those of you that haven't, I'll do my best to keep the intro under 3 minutes this time. Long story short, there are 7 weapons in the game that scale with faith, which is not enough for 1 per boss. Many talismans, sure, but talismans suck at melee. So instead, every weapon I have will function as a life. Once I run out of lives, runs over. Everyone caught up? Alright, awesome. Originally, I was going to beat the Asylum Demon with only the Talisman, just a flex, but it took me 3 minutes to deal 1 segment of his health, and at 13 segments, that's an estimated 39 minutes. On the tutorial boss. So yeah, allow me to introduce you to my other faith weapon, Rock on Stick. Plus, I checked after the fact and my talisman had reduced to 27 out of 50 durability. I don't remember what happens when a weapon hits 0 durability. I might have just started doing 0 damage. Either way, challenge starts after the tutorial. I did still finish him off with it though, just to add insult to injury. And this is where the faith run differs from the intelligence run. See, in that video, I decided to play completely legit, which ultimately caused my premature death. So, in the interest of making things longer and perhaps raising the stakes, I decided to just give myself the weapons immediately. As such, I spawn in Grant, the Crescent Axe, the Dragon Slayer Spear, the Dark Moon Bow, the Great Sword of Artorias Purified version just for fun, and a Stora Straight Sword, which I guess I could have picked up normally, but that's fine. Now, you might think I made the game real easy by giving myself these weapons, but I can't use them. I don't meet the stat requirements for any of them. Luckily, thanks to the Asylum Demon, I can put 2 points into Dexterity to be able to use a Stora Straight Sword, but I'm going to need to heavily invest in basically every stat for this run, which is why the title isn't Dark Souls but only leveling faith. Oh, also, just to make it a bit easier to tell how close I am to failing, let me put this on screen right about here. Comment down below if you think I can win this challenge or what is going to take me out. Hopefully I get a little further than last time. This part of the script is being written before I finish recording, so I honestly have no idea what's going to happen. Though I can tell you what's not going to happen. I ain't going back to the asylum anytime soon, that's for fucking sure. One of the upsides to starting as a cleric is that I have access to additional healing. Estus is faster, but outside of combat, it allows me to make sure I'm topped off before getting into more dangerous situations. The Undead Berg plays out pretty normally, though I do make a stop at the merchant to buy the bottomless box to manage my weapons, as well as a club for reasons that I will explain later. I decided to keep putting points into dexterity because if I don't have enough of that, I just can't use my various weapons. Technically, that's also true for strength, but since there's a modifier for two-handing, I'm in much less trouble if I die early on and need to switch weapons. 2 Twinkling Titanite, now that's helpful. One of the drawbacks of this sword is that it's upgraded with Twinkling instead of regular Titanite, making it much harder to get off the ground early game. Well, time to take on the first boss, the Taurus Demon. Oh, please don't let gravity and my own stupidity be the first death. Okay, we're good. Despite the relative ease of this boss, I was playing super cautiously. I'm honestly kinda disappointed with his weapon. I mean, it looks like it's doing a lot of damage, but the actual numbers show it's pretty weak. I guess that's kinda expected since I'm only barely able to hold the thing and it's unupgraded, but it does make me concerned about any of the more difficult fights to come. Either way, that's one boss down. With his souls, I bring faith to 16 and start working on strength a little. Thanks to that, I'm able to use the Crescent Axe. And it's good that I can use it now because I thought I would need to, as I ended up running under the dragon too soon and got stepped on. First off, I'm surprised that didn't outright kill me, and secondly, kinda terrifying having this thing next to me. Fortunately, I was able to retreat back under the bridge and reset the area. The Hellkite Drake doesn't reset! The Hellkite Drake doesn't reset! I really didn't want to go under the bridge because it would not be the first time I've died to the rats, or gravity, but as long as I take it slow, it's probably fine. And as if the game has a mind of its own, I tried to cleave both rats as they rounded a corner, my sword bounced off the wall, and they were able to stagger lock me. Obviously, I can't roll through them, and rolling towards the ledge would probably send me hurtling 300 meters to my doom. But as if Miyazaki himself intervened, the rats stopped attacking me and I could walk away from them. Thanks to the poison, I had no real choice but to heal and was able to get it off just in time. I then retreated into the rat room and quickly dispatched the unaware one before his AI knew what to do, turned to handle the other ones that were following me, and then healed. I checked to see if the last one was coming, but it was gone. Also, dragon. At this point, I decided the smart thing to do would be to just wait out the poison. I know the bonfire is right there, but that would respawn the enemies, which might end up with me dying to them. Everything was fine until the rat that I thought fell off the ledge decided to scare the shit out of me. I'm just lucky I had enough health remaining to survive. Playing it safe, I make my way to Andre, where I have a terrifying realization. All of my usable weapons are upgraded with Twinkling or Demon Titanite. The former is purchasable if I can make it to the giant blacksmith, and the latter is farmable, albeit at the risk of dying. The bigger issue is that means I will not be able to get an overpowered weapon early to carry me through the early and mid game, and if I do pour all my resources into one weapon then die, I'm kinda screwed. For now, I don't upgrade anything and I use my souls to level vitality a couple of times. As important as gaining access to my weapons are, I also need to, not die to bosses sneezing in my direction. Yep, totally realistic combat right here. I grab the Firekeeper soul and upgrade my S's to +1 for obvious reasons, then start clearing my way to the gargoyles. Strategic use of doorways made this much less worrisome than I had initially thought. That damage is not a lot. Okay, let's be smart about this. I freelot trek, then run all the way back to Andre, making sure not to touch the bonfire, upgrade my Astora straight sword to +2, then run all the way back to Firelink, again not touching the bonfire, and test Lautrec's faith in gravity. He failed. With Fap Ring in hand, I heal up and head back towards the gargoyle. Since I cleared everything out, it's a straight shot. Hey, whoa, where did you come from, buddy? Yeah, so I forgot that enemies also respawn if you reload the area. I'm pretty sure I learned that in an illusory wall video, but it's a mechanic that happens so rarely, I don't know if I've ever invoked it in my game. Anyway, I still successfully clear out the hollows, though I am a tiny bit salty at the waste of a heal earlier, and it's time to take on the next boss. The damage is, again, deceptively good or bad depending on your perspective, like a glass half full kind of thing. The problem, of course, is that I am unable to clear one before the second one joins the fray. Talk about cutting it close. It took me forever to cut the tail off, and when I did, I accidentally inputted a kick instead of a slash, which I honestly thought was going to cost me considering I had Hellfire at the back and an angry gargoyle in the front. But it seems my luck stat was maxed out and I somehow pulled through. This was one of the sloppiest Garg fights I've ever had, but we take those. I ring the bell, then use my souls to get dexterity up to 18, which means as far as dex is concerned, I'm able to use everything except the Dragon Slayer Spear. I also have the total stats to effectively wield the Dark Moon Bow now, so I buy a few arrows from Andre. I'd rather not be using this weapon to fight bosses exclusively, but it will be nice to be able to engage things from a distance. Now, I wasn't 100% sure what I should do next, but since I would have to handle Quelaag eventually, I thought it wouldn't be a terrible idea to get some purple moss from the ints nearby. I also figured since I would need to deal with Capra, the wolf ring would be helpful, so I lumberjack some trees and then tree some random lumberjacks. I know you can make this jump, but something about it is giving me horrible anxiety. Okay, I'm good. I'm sure gravity won't be an issue in this run. I wonder if I'm strong enough to take this thing down. Pass. Of all the possible options, I felt like the less risky was probably Quelaag. Well, okay, maybe that would actually be Moonlight Butterfly, but I was tunnel visioned on the amount of souls Quelaag and Ceaseless would give. I descend into Blighttown and traverse the swamp, then enter her arena. Obviously, the biggest danger here would be getting caught between her legs as she explodes. Ironically, that's also my biggest hope. Considering I'm not doing a lot to her, I suppose now is as good a time as any to talk about this weapon. It's pretty subpar and underwhelming. I mean, it's got okay range, but the damage is lacking. The additional phase scaling doesn't seem to be super strong. I mean, it's currently at C, so not great, though I don't have super high faith yet anyway. It does have divine damage on it, which means if I took it to the catacombs, it would be a big help. The reason I didn't do that is the catacombs are scary. Again, though, the biggest issue, which I mentioned earlier, is just it being a Twinkling Titanite weapon. It severely hinders how quickly you can upgrade it without going way out of your way and stops it from being a great weapon. I mean, I don't think it's bad, but you're honestly probably better off just taking a regular longsword down the regular upgrade path. Anyway, the fight with Quelaag is going pretty well. That is until I have the first major scare of the run. I thought for sure I could thread this needle, but when I took the lava hit, I was positive I was dead. But I guess Quelaag must like to play with her food. She spat lava at me, and it missed, letting me get away. The rest of the fight I played ridiculously conservatively, like one attack at a time, and would not engage her if there was a lava pool within a tri-state area of her. After 7 minutes, Chaos Witch Quelaag goes down. I ring the bell and then put all my levels into dexterity, bringing it to 24, meaning all the weapon's dex requirements are now met and I can start working on faith, and strength, and int, because Artorias' sword just has to be like that. Because I need a ridiculous amount of souls, I decided to gamble on Ceaseless. I'm 100% going to cheese him, but if I die by accidentally running into his first attack, which yes I've done before, pro Souls player everybody, then the easy way out is basically shot and I can't do anything without more health or fire resistance. Fortunately for me, I do manage to get away from him and he leaps to his doom. I also used the talisman just to say it killed a boss. Alright Jane, you're technically correct. The best kind of correct. I get a little in strength and endurance and then begin the long trek out of Blighttown. Fortunately, going up is a lot easier than going down and usually doesn't cost extra, and this time since I have a bow, I figured I would try and get the Firekeeper's soul. Unfortunately, the second blow dart guy was able to toxic me and then I had a decision to make. I was mostly confident that I could survive this one toxic application with my S's and heal spells, but if I got hit again, I likely wouldn't. In that case, I could just bone out to safety. It would take me back to the Daughter of Chaos, but that's better than being dead. In the end, I decided to kill the close dart guy, then just run back to Firelink for more overall SS, but a better bone out point because you better believe I'm going back down until I take that soul. I actually ended up getting toxic again, so I'm glad I didn't wait it out last time. Fortunately, I was able to deal with all the blow dart guys, leaving only the dogs. There's no way in hell I'm going to fight those dogs head on. Instead, I use my bow to upset them, and then suddenly they think they can climb ladders, but they can't, meaning it's an easy two-shot. After that, I just drop down, grab a soul, and immediately peace out before anything bad can happen. I then get Faith at 20, which means I now meet the requirements for everything except Grant, which has a ludicrous 30 Faith, and then head down to New Londo. I'm not actually here to do anything though, except get the other Firekeeper soul. If you want a visual of how safe I'm trying to play, instead of sprinting across the bridge to grab it, I pulled all the ghosts away from certain death to fight them. Yeah, I learned from my past mistakes. I wasn't expecting the Iron Golem to be a huge issue, so I decided to head to Sin's Fortress, and you all should head to the link in the description below to check out my awesome merch. Normally at this part, I just sprint up the ramp and either quit out or pray to Gwen I don't eat it, but that's a bit too risky, so I drop down and then end up using the center ramp, which has plenty of time to make it. At this point, I'm basically home free. I've never really struggled with going up Sin's Fortress, it's always the return trip that sucks. Anyway, up at the peak, I slowly, very slowly, take care of the ball-throwing giant, then take on the Iron Golem. Wow, that damage is ass. Oh hey! So initially, I was fighting him near the thin ledge in hopes to knock him off, but honestly I was worried that I would mess up and get yeeted into oblivion myself, so instead I pulled him towards the center of the arena. Want to know how terrible the damage is here? Even after getting the knockdown, I only managed to do one large segment of his health bar. This fight took a whopping 4 minutes, which is insane for a normal weapon. I mean, 4 minutes is a long time, right? Fellas, help me out here. Anyway, with the golem turned to scrap metal, I had a decision to make. I could go to Anor Londo and take on ONS to get the Lord Vessel, which I want. But that involves taking on ONS, which I am currently afraid of. Having the ability to warp would make me way more comfortable for things like going to the Catacombs or Ash Lake if I wanted to farm some Twinkling Titanite. In the end, I decided to temporarily put a pin in Anor Londo and dumped all my souls into Vitality to prepare for everything, I guess. Unfortunately, the Master Key is unable to open the cage shortcut, meaning I need to descend Sin's Fortress. It was mostly painless, but at one point my controller apparently had a mind of its own and I rolled randomly. I swear I did not hit that button, and I am so glad the saws were there to stop my momentum, otherwise I would have plummeted to the murky tar below. I actually wasn't sure what to do at this point, as the currently accessible bosses were either way out of the way without warping, or had an elevated level of imminent death. But I can't just run away from my problems, so I figured I would take on the easiest of them, the Capra Demon. Huh, I could have sworn the Master Key opened this door. I'd probably survive the Hellkite Drake's fire if something bad happened, but better to not risk it. Instead, I'll run by the angry pile of rocks that wants to bad dragon tooth me. Surely no danger there. Okay, basement key now all the way back. I took a risk here, and I just hoped I wouldn't get crushed immediately after walking through the door. I even heard the attack, but luckily he's too slow, and now I have a hankering for a chili dog. If you get that reference, don't forget to take your back medicine and drink some water. Don't worry, I have to too. At this point, I'm level 37, which isn't high, but it's higher than what is probably expected for Lower Undead Burg. Still, I need to be cautious. The thieves and dogs of this area are dangerous no matter what level you are. After clearing them out, I buy some poison arrows, bet you can't guess what I'm going to use those for, then it's time to take on Capra. My first thought was to use an alluring skull to distract the dog that charges you, but I don't actually know if this helped or not as I got dual machetes to the face. I then retreated to the top of the stairs and made a snap decision to heal instead of trying another skull. I also had the awareness to turn the camera to face Capra as he did attempt to jump attack me. The dogs followed me up, but thankfully were weak enough to go down in one swing. The Capra decided to get his AI stuck in trying to jump attack me from below. Now, I know from experience that this can clip my feet and do damage, but it's easy enough to see and listen to what he's doing. After healing up, I get some juicy plunge attack damage, and by juicy I mean not really juicy at all, but hey, it's still damage. I did mistime a dodge and he showed me what big damage actually looks like, but without the dogs in the fight, it's not difficult. In fact, I would wager that the majority of the deaths in this fight happened within 3 seconds of entering the arena. Just for style. Now I have the depths key and I pictured Gaping Dragon being a relatively easy fight, but I don't want to claw my way out of the depths manually, so another boss for another time. I used the Capra's Souls to buy more poison arrows because I have no idea how many I'll need, and I guess there's no more running. That's not true. In hindsight, I could have run to a few more bosses, but no, it's time. Up through Sin's Fortress and into Anor Londo. First thing I do here is start pelting the gargoyle with arrows. I do manage to poison it, but it isn't Dark Souls 2, so poison is kinda hot garbage. In hindsight, I should have played this completely safe and just waited it out, as there was a scare or two, but it's really just the first boss again, so it's not enough to bring me down. I then grabbed some Demon Titanite and began slowly making my way across the rafters. My first thought was to use range and just pull the enemies back to stable ground, but they have throwing knives and will stop to just infinitely yeet sharp cutlery at me. For the last two, I just did the trick where you bait their AI to Wile E. Coyote themselves. For the second gargoyle, I definitely learned and decided to just stand on the stairs before rotating the platform. Must have been the wind. I'm getting way more use out of the bow than I originally planned to. Someone once told me that the way they deal with the Anor Londo archers is by using poison arrows, but I was worried I would get knocked off the ledge, so instead I just risked it and open-handed parried their swords. Inside the castle, I grabbed the occult club, adding the only one-up in this run I'll get. I know it's kinda iffy on whether it should be considered usable here, but the reason why I'm okay with it is just because in the Int run, I had planned to use the enchanted falchion you get in the Duke's Archives, and this is basically the Faith equivalent. Also, the whole reason I bought the club at the beginning was to make it a cult should I be unable to get this far, so guess that's 150 souls down the drain. I pop 11 humanity, that way I can unbacon myself and kindle the bonfire. The reason I went with that amount is because I thought the defensive gain stopped at 10 liquid humanity, but that might actually go all the way up to 99. Either way, the increase is welcome. I spend the last of my souls to buy some Twinkling Titanite, and remember you can actually level up armor in this game, so I do that as well, then grab the Hawk Ring for later, and it's finally time to take on the Dastardly Duo. I was scared. I'm only level 37 and hadn't invested heavily into health or a specific damaging stat, so I was relying on the occult damage to carry me. It's gonna be carrying me pretty hard apparently. Not even triple digits on an attack at this stage in the game is a serious problem, one that would need to be overcome by persistence and patience. It would probably be smarter to take down Smo first because Super Ornstein might not be able to one-shot me, but I wouldn't be surprised if Super Smo's super ass could clap me from a mile away. That being said though, I am much more familiar and comfortable with Smo's moveset, so I went with that. Near the end of Ornstein's life, I had another scare. I dodged into him and went for an attack, only for him to hit me with his scoop and slam, taking me to critically low health, and Smo had caught up, and Ornstein tried to reposition behind me. Fortunately, a pillar stopped him from getting all the way around me, and despite Smo doing the dreaded shovel attack, I was able to escape and heal up. I then took a calculated risk with a heavy attack to try and bring down Ornstein. Fortunately, it paid off, and the hard part of the fight was over. Now, in theory, the only thing I have to do for Super Smo is make some distance and then sprint right at him. He'll do one of two things, either attempt to jump attack me, to which I run under him and smack his butt a couple times before retreating, or he'll try to shovel me, and for that I just have to turn around and sprint away. Rarely he might do other attacks, but then it's just a matter of stopping the sprint and dodging appropriately. I know this. I know there is no real danger as long as I commit to running under him. But still I got scared. I did it a few times, but then I rationalized that the bow with poison arrows would help me and I just had to kite the boss around the arena. While I did end up poisoning him, I became worried that I would get stuck on some level geometry or something and die, so I opted to just return to the way of the bonk to speed it up. After a grueling 11-minute fight, the dynamic dead duo goes down deathless. Guinevere then gives me the Lord Vessel and asks me to do something. I don't know, I wasn't really listening, I was distracted by the, Lord Vessel. Seriously though, with this, I am much more comfortable navigating the world. First thing I do with my surplus of souls is buy the Crest of Artorias. Now, this is an optional and expensive item, but the idea of fighting through the Hydra, and more specifically those big cats, stirs a primordial fear in my heart that I do not wish to confront. Next, I buy a decent amount of large arrows just for some solid range damage and return to the Undead Merchant to restock on some poison arrows. Using the remaining souls, I get 1 level in intelligence. Oh, I also use a consumable soul to buy Homeward in the event I know I'll be farming and don't want to use Homeward Bones. Next, I get from Frampt what I wish I would have gotten from Guinevere, then I place the Lord Vessel. With that, the way to the Lords are open, but I'm not really ready to take on any of them just yet. So I head back to Darkroot Garden, learn I am exceptionally bad at parrying halberds, and grab the Grasscrest Shield. Then, for no reason aside from the fact that I'm in town and wanted a few more souls, I take on the Moonlight Butterfly. Thankfully, at this point, even with instability damage, its magic attacks do very little. Unfortunately, the same can be said for me. When it landed, I was only able to do a little less than half its health, meaning I would likely have to 3-cycle it. That's not a huge issue, but I was impatient, so I equipped the bow to be able to do damage to it while it's airborne, ultimately resulting in a 2-cycle. I take my spoils and get a staggering 1 more level in intelligence before heading back to the garden to fight Sif, and by fight Sif, I mean stand on the side of her arena and pelt her with poison arrows so she slowly dies. Wow, that is actually kinda dark now that I'm saying it out loud. So anyway, this took about 11 minutes. I won't subject you to watching that or another Manus Mass situation. Instead, I would like to take a second to thank all my Patreons who help support me and the channel. You guys keep the dream alive and I couldn't do it without you. Stay beautiful, y'all. If you'd like to help support the channel and get access to all my videos 2 weeks before YouTube does, why not consider subscribing? Anyway, back to Sif, who very unceremoniously dies. I quickly grab the Hornet Ring for the very niche uses it will have, then use the souls I got to get int to 14. I figured my next target should be the Gaping Dragon because the boss itself is pretty easy, it's just getting there that might pose a problem. Fortunately, I'm overleveled for the depths, so this is probably fine. There are a couple of Torch Hollows here, and one of them did try to end my whole career, but as life flashed before my eyes, instincts kicked in and I evaded the attack then wallbanged the Hollow like it was Call of Duty. I free Laurentius just to be a nice fellow, then clear out some rats. An added benefit of having 10 liquid humanity is the increased drop rate of items, resulting in more humanity should I need them. A few steps further in, I was worried about the big rats in the Chandler, but the good news is a single large arrow can take out the rats. But then I almost choked by misspacing a sword swing, causing me to get hit, then attempting to use the bow to kill either of the enemies, but accidentally roll to the side instead of back down the hallway. Ultimately, I was able to squeeze by the Chandler and heal, then finish the job. I'm just glad I had all the levels I do to increase my physical defense, otherwise I would have died. Luckily, things calmed down in the Gaping Dragon fight. He opens up, pun intended, with the head slam so I can score some free damage. I follow that up with cutting off his tail, not because I wanted the weapon, but it's just nice to reduce the range of his tail swipe. I find a pretty consistent AI loop for him is that anytime he does the head slam but before he stands back up to idle, run really far away. 9 out of 10 times he will just repeat the head slam, trivializing the fight. I hope that tip for an optional, already pretty easy boss fight from nearly a decade-and-a-half old game will serve someone well. I use the souls to get 2 levels in intelligence, then return to Andre to level my sword up a bit more as things are about to start getting tougher. That's right, it's time to head to the catacombs. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but it takes 2 swings to take down a skeleton, but thanks to the divine damage on the weapon, they don't get back up. Honestly, this was far easier than I expected thanks to the divine damage for skeletons and the arrows to the eyeballs for the necromancers. Patches wasn't in his normal position, which confused me, but I learned that triggering Rhea to move to the Tomb of the Giants will cause Patches to move as well, which means I'm not in any danger of him flipping the bridge over on me. Another interesting thing happened a little later on. I was attempting to retrieve the Dark Moon Seance Ring, so I baited the big skeleton to fall down and took care of him, and as I approached, the ceiling then collapsed, meaning Mr. Big Bones can apparently phase through solid rock. I almost had a completely unnecessary death after falling through the floor and briefly forgetting where I was and then nearly getting knocked off the ledge. Fortunately, that didn't happen and I bone out to safety. Now, originally this was all I had planned to get from here. Pinwheel isn't going to give a lot of souls, and Nito, well, Nito and I have some long-standing issues, so I thought I would just come back later when I was stronger, but I decided to push forward. Whether I was getting cocky or overconfident was yet to be seen, but just like Vegas tells me, you don't quit when you're hot. So I make my way down using the shortcut called Shattering My Ankles and then enter Pinwheel's arena. I knew my damage was going to be garbage, so I actually took out the clones before engaging Pinwheel directly, but 164? Seriously? This thing is +4 and I have decent stats at this point, and it's Pinwheel. This sword is actually trash. But, like I said, it's Pinwheel, so I was in nearly no danger and he goes down pretty easy. He dropped the Mask of the Mother. I knew if I didn't tell you, you'd ask anyway. Actually, go ahead and do that. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. In the Tomb of the Giants proper, I had 3 objectives. The first was to touch the bonfire just so I could warp here if I needed to. The second was the Silver Serpent Ring, that way I could get more souls from fights, and the third was to kill the first of the undead. That's right, much like the calcium that makes up Nito, my resolve has hardened and I'm ready to take him on. On my way there, I got invaded by Paladin Leroy. I had honestly forgotten I was even in human form, but I have no interest in fighting him. It's all about Bone Grandpa. Well, I guess that problem sorted itself out anyway. So the worst thing Nito can do is start the fight with a Toxic Sword Stab. Fuck! Thankfully, I was able to dodge it and heal up. Then, I patiently waited for the Tony Squad to approach since I can actually take them out of the fight this time. Nito casts Sword Enema again, and this time I stupidly dodge into a corner, keeping my hurtbox in place, causing me to get hit by it. But it did far less damage than I thought it would, so I survived. The third Tony just disappeared, I guess? I don't know. I let Nito shamble over to me. Oh, there Tony is, okay. And there he goes. Once the final skeleton is dealt with, I can focus on Nito, and as you can see, I'm not doing very much damage. Par for the course at this point, and to be fair, I am only level 47, but it's concerning when his miasma attack, while I am blocking, did like 40% of my health. I don't actually know if blocking reduces the damage on that, but I don't want to find out. That was the only real hiccup in the fight, and after about 5 minutes of running in a U-shape back and forth, the first of the undead becomes the millionth of the newly dead. Fun fact, I totally forgot to equip either the Silver Serpent Ring or the Wolf Ring and just had the Hawk Ring on still. Oops. With his souls, I was able to get the 20 int minimum to use the Greatsword of Artorias and started working on the faith requirement for Grant. I head back to Anor Londo for my next boss, and something weird happens when I fall off the ledge. Animation cancel? I'm not sure what happened. I think I tried to switch my shield for Talisman to heal, but also tried to roll when I hit the ground? I don't know, and I'm sure it's either already discovered or completely useless tech in speedrunning anyway. Gwendolyn is up next. Now, I could have used the Occult Club for the extra damage against him. I mean, the fight isn't hard, but I regret nothing. More faith levels, and I take a quick break to talk to Andre and have him level up my wardrobe a bit. Next, I finally figured it's time to kill this Titanite demon. I don't really have a reason to. I'm not currently using one of my demon Titanite weapons, but I mean, I was in the neighborhood and range shows how overpowered it is once again. With Gwendolyn dead, this Firekeeper is angry with me, meaning attacking her is actually self-defense. I notice she is holding what I believe is a parrying dagger, and that caused me to be afraid to attack her with anything that isn't a jump attack. Unfortunately, her poise let her shrug off my sword like it's as dull as some of my jokes are. Eventually, though, I risk it and take her down. I immediately returned to Firelink to turn it in so I don't forget, then figured it was time to confront my worst fears and return to the asylum. You better believe I took out the torch hollows with my bow. I gave Oscar the old parry post into insta-backstab trick. Noob. Then I make sure to grab the doll and rusted iron ring, that way if my life ends tragically in a few moments, at least I'll have gotten something. So, the Stray Demon. I don't know how it's possible, but this weapon is constantly underwhelming me. The bar for my expectations is so far down, it'll take a team of archaeologists 7 months and $250,000 to find it. Anyway, the fight is painfully slow, so much so that I'm not even excited that I did it hitless. Good job, Astora Straight Sword, you sucked the fun out of the room. Well, at least he's taken care of. I now make a potentially quite risky move in that I return to the Tomb of the Giants and let Patches push me down a hole. Technically, the hole pushing part was not necessary, but fastest route from A to B and all. I did this so I could finish Rhea's questline, but in order to do that, I have to finish Nico and Vince. Yeah, I bet that didn't feel good. So the reason this is dangerous, in addition to the instant death pits, is because it is pitch black down here and poise is definitely not a made-up stat in this game. Fortunately, a lucky parry or two takes care of the hollow bodyguards. I then kill Petrus for no reason. And in the Undead Church, I buy Wrath of the Gods from a now single and ready-to-mingle Rhea. More on Wrath of the Gods later. For now, I think it's time to admire some fine art. In the Painted World, I take the usual stairs shortcut, slap the dragon around a few times, wow, I almost died, then poke it in the butt. I am no longer interested in Guinevere, behold our one true queen. I use my hard wood to get her tail. God, I need to touch some grass, you guys, I'll be back. Right, so Priscilla is down and I proceed to base jump without a parachute. Luckily, it was just a dream and I wake up in front of the painting. I go ahead and make my way to the Duke's archives just to clear out the boars, and one of them gives me my next heart attack. My back was to the wall and I thought for sure it was going to sweep me into oblivion. But I somehow managed to come out on top. With all those souls though, I am able to finally hit the faith requirement of 30. Now I just need to work on my upper body strength. I then head back to the Painted World for a bit of farming, and let's talk about Wrath of the Gods. I'm going to level with you all. I kind of forgot what challenge I was doing. I had it in my head briefly that this was in fact only leveling faith, which would make this a viable spell. But if this is faith weapons only, which it is, it's not. Well, I can't change the past, so this spell is only going to be used for this farm, and these souls are only for purchasing upgrade materials. Deal? Deal. Now this is where things get a bit fun. I wasn't completely sure what Lord Soul I should go for. Honestly, Seath would probably be the easiest as far as the actual fight goes, but the Bed of Chaos has 2 bosses before her, which means some more souls for leveling up. So I figured I would head there instead. I spent some time sparring with the Capra Demon, then as I was making my way forward, Kirk invaded. Honestly, I once again forgot I was even in human form. Imagine being a knight, clad in armor designed to hurt your opponent simply by existing, and a monk slaps your sword away and casts you into oblivion. Do better, Kirk. Also, taking him down gave me enough souls to get exactly 35,000, and there's just something about that's nice. Now, I probably could have gotten by using those souls to level, but I decided to instead use them for some Twinkling Titanite and to upgrade Astora's Straight Sword to +5. So, Demon Fire Sage. Gotta say, I was a bit nervous. Obviously, the fight itself isn't hard, but I have, on way too many occasions, been screwed over by the arena. So I was trying to be extra cautious with when I could attack him. The amount of damage I was doing to him absolutely did not reassure me that this was going to be okay. At some point, I decided to use the Dark Moonbow to try and chip his health down, which was very risky because now if I died, I would lose both those weapons at once. Fortunately, am pro Souls player, and he goes down. I get 1 level in strength, and it's already time for the next boss, the Centipede Demon. Now again, the boss itself, not an issue. Getting randomly pushed into the lava? Yeah, that could be a big issue. Of course, I fought him on the little land platform off to the right, and after cutting off his tail, I actually decided to menu daring the fight to equip the ring. That's how worried I was something stupid was going to happen, like I get hit by his jump explosion and blown back into the lava. But with the level hazard removed, the fight is a complete cakewalk. The demon lacks any attacks that land on his side save for the stomp, but that's easy enough to avoid just by walking backwards. When the fight was over, I actually re-equipped the Silver Serpent's Ring for the souls, then without thinking, damn near walked into the lava. Thankfully, I came to my senses in time. I put a level into strength and 1 into attunement so I could have 2 healing spells. In combat, they hardly ever get any use, but it's nice to not have to use Estus while running around. Kirk, I admire your persistence, but maybe you should take a break. So, I'm not here to do the Bed of Chaos, not yet. Instead, I wanted to open the shortcut door, that way I could easily farm Demon Titanite for my weapons. Yes, this took as long as you think it did, and yes, I do know that I could have used humanity to open it from the other side, but I had to kill the bosses anyway, so it didn't really matter. With that taken care of and 57,000 souls under my belt, I spent it all on a bunch of arrows. Was that a smart purchase? Probably not, but hey, here we are. I then use what little I have left over to upgrade my Greatsword of Artorias once, as well as the Crescent Axe once. I make a quick trip back to Firelink to grab the Ring of Sacrifice, and it's off to Anorlando where I play face shooty with this uninterested sentinel. I did this because he and his friend guarded chests with some more Demon Titanite. Time for the Duke's Archive. So first plan was to slowly take everything out one at a time, but I do so little damage I can't kill the Crystal Hollows in 1 or even 2 swings, so I was quickly overwhelmed and had to make a run for it. Luckily, with many panic rolls and pleas for help, I managed to make it to the elevator. Guess I'll just have to come back for the pendant. Imagine blocking an attack and getting punished for it. Nope. Okay, let me address the big blue dragon in the room. Hey Seath, I know about Duke Skip and that would save me this mandatory death, but 2 things. 1, doing it felt kinda unfair to the challenge. Like robbing myself of the potential of dying in the prison. And 2, I've never done it before, so like, no shot I managed to do it before I ran out of lives anyway. As such, with Ring of Sacrifice equipped to mimic just being teleported, I die to Seath. Normally I run through the Toshokan here, but I wanted to be extra careful so I used the Dark Moon Bow to thin the herd. I was even able to pull the Snakeman with some well-placed arrows. After shutting off the sick tunes, I made my daring escape. After only a minor heart attack involving the Chandler's Trident, I managed to make it to the next bonfire where I put a single level into strength. I then returned to Audrey to upgrade my Dragon Slayer Spear to +3 in preparation for what's to come. I run by the blue golems in the garden, but before crossing the first invisible path of bullshit game design only loosely saved by a floating message and some occasional starflakes, I make sure none of them are following me, then use my bow to pull the orange one. Now, normally I just run up to this thing and it usually jumps at me, letting me squeeze on by, but one time I fell off the ledge doing that, so I'm not risking it. After I let it sufficiently far away, I hauled it across the other invisible bridge and began clearing out last night's dinner. Unfortunately, my first arrow shot pulled 2 of them and I thought, Calamit, this is how it ends. The good news though is that 1 hit can stagger them, so as long as I am careful, I should be able to dance around their attacks and take them out. It does get a bit sketchy when one of them can turn on a dime for no reason, making it kinda difficult to get behind it, but otherwise, it's time for Seath. So, the reason why I chose the Dragon Slayer Spear here was because Seath has an insane magical defense, which all of my weapons do. All except for 1. This one. If it wasn't apparent, this one. It does lightning damage. Though, now that I think about it, there is something poetic about using the Dragon Slayer Spear on him, and I'm no lore master, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of lore implication, what with Ornstein as a Knight of Gwyn and Seath the Betrayer. I don't know. Anyway. I was a bit let down with how I only hit him for 180 damage a swing. I'm sure that's magnitudes better than your store straight sword though. Anyway, there's not a huge worry in this fight. I have high curse resistance. I'm honestly not sure why. I don't know if it's the armor or one of the stats I pumped, but I'm not complaining. The key to fighting him is to just bury your face in his testapit while keeping an eye on his hands. If he starts to shake, it means you're doing a good job and he's gonna explode, and that's the hint to run away unless you want a bunch of crystals to penetrate you. Yeah, I know what I said. But, just as I suspected, Seath is easy and he goes down after just a couple of minutes. I use his souls to get 22 in strength and proceed to farm the crap out of the Titanite Demon to make my Greatsword of Artorias maxed out. Seriously, the game is just taunting me at this point. Whatever, next stop, New Londo. So the only real issue here is the ghost house. I mean, I guess I could've just sniped Ingward, but where's the danger in that? Cocky? I'm not getting cocky. Also, 400 fucking damage? What? Alright, yeah, I know the broken straight sword and sword hilt exist, but a Stora's straight sword must actually be the worst normal weapon in the game. Holy hell. Anyway, after draining the city, it's time for the Four Kings. So this fight I was a tad worried about. Obviously not if it's a one-on-one, as the damage is actually kinda decent, but I've had a lot of runs experience problems where the Four Kings just keep doing things that delay the inevitable, causing other kings to join and turning the whole fight into a mess. The first king plays pretty nice, not wasting much of my time, and dies about 2 seconds before the second one shows up. The second starts off okay, but a bit into it he decides to explode and it somehow clipped me. Not only is that a waste of time, but now I'm forced to heal or risk death. Good news, I got the heal off. Bad news, he went for a grab. Worst news, I missed the follow-up, but he didn't. Terrible news, he went for the explosion again. At least I dodged it this time, but at this point I was pretty sure the third king was off screen somewhere just lurking. But this one is only a couple hits away from dead. With his demise, I get impaled. I guess I know where that king is now. I tried to go for a heal hoping he would do something slow, but he actually went for a normal slash and I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't afford to get into a heal loop, so I patiently waited for the opportunity. Yeah, okay game, whatever. I had no choice but to go on the offensive, except the king had other plans as he thought now was a good time to blow up. Then he started backing up, which means he wanted to launch a projectile at me. To make it come out faster, I ran away from him to get his distance trigger set up to fire it, then did my best to position it to constantly circle around me. Unfortunately, after just one attack, he went for a grab, but this was a blessing in disguise really. It steals a humanity which lowers my defenses, but it doesn't actually deal a ton of damage, and while I was down and invincible, the projectile blew up harmlessly. Though that fourth king lurking in the background isn't ominous at all. Regardless, I heal up and begin working on the king. By the time he's dead, the boss itself is about one hit away from death. All I have to do now is not royally screw up. And just like that, the four kings are dead. I used their souls to get up to 24 in strength, and now I had a decision to make. The Bed of Chaos, or the DLC. Now, on the one hand, Manus, Calamine, and Artorias are all extremely dangerous, hard-hitting, high-defense having bosses that could easily wipe out my lives. On the other hand, fucking gravity. So let's do the DLC. First, of course, I would need to free Dusk and get the pendant. Clearing out the blue golems isn't a problem, and after taking a couple of the Hydra's heads off, there's no danger to shoot its body. Game, you are about 3 seconds away from being uninstalled, you know that? Golden Golem? Dusted. Dusk? Rizzed. Don't worry, all the women in my life vanish when I talk to them. It's normal. Now the possibly hard part of getting the pendant. I could have come at this from the Duke's Archives bonfire and slowly cleared everything out that way, but I figured I was a bit more prepared this time. The scariest part was when there were 2 crystal hollows closing in on me, one of which was supercharged, but I managed to unlock both of them with the same sword swings to bring them down. After that, it's just a case of not getting magic missiled from off screen while I fought the golem, and the pendant was as good as mine. Is this gonna cost me extra? So I decided already that I wanted to use the crescent axe as I don't think I have before. Like, ever, but I'm also sick of this glorified holy toothpick. Unfortunately, it's a bit heavy for my single-digit endurance, so I made a quick pivot to meet my old friend Havel. Well, at least I didn't one-shot me. After giving Havel the business, I collect his ring which lets me fast-roll with the crescent axe. I present to you the time I skill-issued so hard in the easiest DLC fight. I am embarrassed and ashamed, and honestly I have no idea how I will recover from this. Thankfully, I precast replenishment, which heals slightly faster than the poison axe, so for as long as it's active, I don't have to worry about encroaching death. Also, crescent axe kinda blows chunks. I mean, it's not as bad as that awful sword, but still, it took 3 hits to take the tail off, and I didn't even manage that until the boss was 3/4 dead. Fortunately, I got some good luck with the Sanctuary Guardian doing its wind attack for a free follow-up, but also whatever this collision detection was, more or less letting me secure the victory. First DLC boss goes down. With his souls I get a single level in vitality, then kindle the bonfire to plus 15. Can you tell I was a bit worried about Artorias? To be fair, I was also worried about the run up to him as the forest can be a bit dickish. And then make a quick stop to buy some fire arrows. Why fire arrows? Well, honestly I don't think I've ever used them, so hey, why not? Oh cool, I can make my clothes harder now. So I wasn't sure what to tackle Artorias with. Sometimes he's an easy duel, so I can go in with my strongest weapon to just end it really fast. Other times he's a right challenge and makes me want to see if I can make my controller reach Earth's escape velocity. In the end, I did actually go with a Stora's Greatsword, not because I was confident, but because if I die, I want this pathetic excuse for a box cutter out of my inventory. That was not a trade in my favor, and it wasn't even triple digits. Okay, time to buckle down and hope my gaming chair is good. Oh, apparently the first hit was instability damage or something, because now I'm doing even less. Honestly, there wasn't a whole lot to this fight, it was just a long, slow test of patience. The only optimizations I made were after his lunge I could do a jumping attack for a bit more damage, and when he buffed I could do light, light, heavy. Other than that though, it was just knowing which attack is not only punishable but in what direction I should roll to be in the optimal position to hit him. Pretty much the only advantage this sword has over my other weapons is its speed, I'll give it that. Now if only it could give me respectable numbers. Anyway, after nearly 9 minutes locked in this arena with me, Artorias is laid to rest. 2 points into strength to start working on that ridiculous Grant requirement, and now it's time for Ulasil. So I normally mostly just sprint through this area, and it's like a, I don't know, 80-ish% chance of being successful, but at this point I was getting a bit nervous. I'm 4 bosses away from doing this deathless. I mean, sure, one of those bosses is likely gonna 9.8067 meters per second squared me, but that's a problem for Newton and future me. I cleared my way through the town, pulling things slowly and using the strong attacks for wide swings. Everything was doing good, until I got invaded by Chester. I forgot he's an invasion, like entirely. Normally when I play this game I'm baconified, so I never see any of them, and I was not prepared for this fight. But just when I thought it was going to be a problem, I learned that the high ground is, in fact, not always useful. Excuse me? What the fuck was that? Someone get JK on the horn, there's a throwing knife I think he missed. Well, with him taken care of, the rest of Ulasil is easy. Again, because bow. I did stop to grab the crest key from a sleeping and harmless mimic, then doubled back to grab the silver pendant because I'm going to need it. The only problem here is the chained prisoner, but not actually him, it's the fact that the elevator behind him is set up in a way that if you run by the chained prisoner, you're gonna get pincered into oblivion. So I pull him all the way to the front of the room just to make a run for it. Luckily, I make the lift just in time and enter the abyss. So first, yes, it 100% occurred to me to do the bow cheese for Manus. It was actually part of the reason I bought fire arrows earlier, but Mama didn't raise no bitch. She did, however, raise an idiot because, oh look, 5 Estus, haha, oops. I decided the only weapon for the job was the greatsword of Artorias, gotta keep the legend alive. Why? Why does everything in this DLC have so much health? The fight is slow and grueling, a battle of attrition, at least for me. At any point he could easily truck-kun me out of this world. Really though, as long as I simply dodge once and get a single follow-up, it's mostly okay. The biggest thing to look out for is his 5-hit combo, as that is probably instant death. Thankfully, I never had to find out. When he starts casting magic, I was absolutely tempting fate. I rolled a shotgun blast. Multiple times. I only did that because I was worried it was the Reign of Darkness attack, and I didn't want to accidentally get them stuck above me with the pendant. I know they have different animations, but it had been a while so I wasn't sure, but after a little bit, I was locked in. The curse of the abyss shall spread no longer, as with one final cut, Manus falls before me. I dump everything into strength, nope, still can't two-hand Grant, then buy about 700 wooden arrows from Andre as it is time to hunt one big chicken. Calamite, this is an interesting fight. Now, we all know the way 99% of people fight him is by first dying, then having the friendly neighborhood Hawkeye blast him out of the sky. However, it is possible to do this encounter without becoming barbecue. I didn't feel completely right just saying, well, haha, it's kinda mandatory, but not, and not counting it as a death, so the middle ground I found is that I'm going to attempt to bow him to death, but if I die, then I will not take a life away. However, my first grounded attempt with him must be with the bow, and obviously if I die, then that's a life. I did actually look up how to do the ranged strat before entering this fight. All I have to do is run to this little area and wait for his first pass, then when he shows up, quickly sprint to this bush and I have enough time to get off an arrow. Huh, 47 damage. This might take a while. Oh, I didn't equip the Hawk Ring. Well, that sucks. I was actually kinda excited to bow cheese him and see the midair death. Oh well, I guess on some other run. Crossbows only, maybe. Don't mind me, Calamite, just picking up my liquid armor. So I wasn't as worried about fighting him with a bow because I've done it before. In fact, I did it with this bow, so I already kinda knew what I needed to do. Granted, the damage leaves a lot to be desired, but hey, it is what it is. The whole fight, I was trying to hit Calamite in his glowy eye because it causes him to recoil in pain. Fair enough, but if you're skilled enough, you can actually chain that endlessly. I am not skilled. In fact, I only managed to land the eye shot twice in the entire fight. One of which was right at the end when he was already one shot away from death. Only took me about 15 minutes. I grabbed the Titanite slab out of the arena, then I guess there is nowhere left to hide. I have to take on the Bed of Chaos. I figured I would start with the Stora's Straight Sword, mostly because if I die, it's finally gone. Now, I find the left side much easier to get to after the floor collapses, so I went to the right one first. Obviously not an issue to get there and bust her ball open. Yep, that's exactly what I expected. Well, I gave it a lot of shit, and it's kinda deserved, but a Stora Straight Sword did carry me through the majority of the bosses, so I can at least give it a burial at sea with a proper bow. Next weapon I wouldn't mind losing is the Crescent Axe. Now let me show you why the left side is easy. Just jump the gap. It's scary when a massive fire claw decides to try and hit you at the same time, but it's fine. Bust the nut, nearly test out Bad Dragon's new hot and spicy line, then jump the gap back to safety. I got hit again while trying to go under, but managed to not get carried into the abyss, so that's good, and just like that, the Bed of Chaos is over with only one death. I put every soul into strength, but I still can't use Grant, and I actually run all the way back to the arena to pick up my humanity again. Glad I was paying attention. Let's just get the bloodstain and get the hell out of here. Back at Firelink, I remembered I had some souls I could pop, and I was able to get one more level, and finally, at 34 strength, I can use this stupid hammer. I then spent some time farming the Black Knights in the kiln. Specifically, I wanted the regular chunks for my clothes and the white chunks for my occult club. Conveniently though, that would be clearing 4 Knights, which is 8,000 souls, or the exact cost of 1 Twinkling Titanite. At some point I noticed you can see Gwyn over the railing, and I spent a long time trying to see if I could get a vantage point on him to bow cheese him from outside the arena, but in the end I was unable to. Guess I gotta do it the old-fashioned way. Honestly, if I still had it, the Astora Straight Sword would be the perfect weapon to round this run out with, considering how long it carried me, but I figured I spent the whole game preparing to use Grant, that was a good second choice. I was a bit worried because I'm not able to one-hand it, but it'll probably be fine. The opening parry is free, but after that, I just need to be careful. Grant is slow but hits pretty hard, but Gwyn is fast and hits harder. Another weapon cast off the island. Second choice was the Dragon Slayer's Spear. Probably something poetic about using it against Gwyn. I honestly just don't like spears though, so if I die, I won't be torn up about it. Damage was strong, but unfortunately, I had a classic skill issue. Goodbye, Dragon Slayer's Spear, I hardly knew ya. Okay, Crescent Axe is up. I kinda forgot I still had it, honestly. Damage is good, but more importantly, 2 hits is enough to stagger Gwyn. At first I thought to just circle around him and keep stunning him, but he randomly insta-charged an attack while not facing me, leading to this unfortunate demise. I want it to be known that I was mashing the dodge button here, but my character had just given up, it seemed. Thank you for the short work you put in, Crescent Axe, or more specifically for the valuable information in Gwyn's staggering. I was hopeful that the Occult Club could do that in 2 hits as well, but first I had to break out the Greatsword of Artorias. Unlike Grant, I am able to riposte one-handed with this weapon, meaning I can do monstrous damage right out of the gate. 4 digits worth, absolutely the most I've seen in the whole run. Then a single one-handed light attack dealt 170 damage, not nearly as impressive. I then took 2 swings from Gwyn, but somehow held on. At least now I was at a decent amount of health, but then he went for the slow sweep and I dodged, and his follow-up caught my parry. I wanted the Estus loop, but he went for a quick slash, cutting my dreams in half. Then, as nerves were at their limit, I got a parry, and missed the riposte. But another chance soon shone, and I was able to connect. Another try at the Estus loop, and he takes the bait, sealing the fate of Lordron. We're saved! Oh, we're saved! Oh, I wouldn't say saved, dear Hollow. More like under new management.